Yes, I think we are live right now with Alex Genov, Suzanne from Retail VR, and myself. Very pleased to welcome you to this new webinar, the third episode. We've had a chance to receive two retail specialists from the US, from the East Coast, and this time we have Alex coming from, we can't really say West Coast, but it's from Las Vegas, let's say, from the United States as well. So this webinar is introduced by Retail VR. I will give you a bit of background about Retail VR in a second, using, sorry for those who have seen it before, the same use case as I was introducing last week about Nestlé. And this webinar is also co-organized with Retail Heart Consulting, a company based in Dubai, and Retail Heart basically is a consultant, and they help retailers and consumer good companies to basically define their retail strategy and improve their operation. They're operating in Asia and of course in the Middle East. So let me share to you the use case. So I'm trying to illustrate what we do at Retail VR through the Nestlé use case. So I will run a small video. So I'm going to share the screen with you. It takes a minute, so I think it's more interesting than running slides. Up, I share the screen. 1 second. There you are. I think you can see the screen now. And so we are, Retail VR is a company based in France, and we have been working now with Nestlé for the past 4 years. So something specific about Nestlé is that they have virtualized their showrooms. Now they don't have any physical showroom anymore, and they use our platform to work their micro and micro merchandising using our techno. So they work their planograms in 3D. So as you have seen before, we have developed this capacity to recreate automatically planograms in 3D. We do the same with the POS equipment. So we have an editor that helps Nestlé to actually build all the content of the planogram, so the products. And from the micro merchandising, we can then move to the macro merchandising, which is basically to help Nestlé to simulate the customer journey. So they do this to showcase their merchandising strategy towards their client using their client's environment, where we can recreate showroomings. As you see on the screen, whenever they have to launch a new product or a new POS equipment, they can showcase this using our solution. We also use this platform to run shopper studies, in which we are going to have consumers that are going to be asked to do their shopping as if they were in a real supermarket, and then they can store. And we have partners that can help us to identify basically the shopping behaviors of our clients. So this is how Nestlé is using our platform to work their perfect store strategy. Now I go back to the presentation, and I'm handing the floor to Suzanne, my dear Suzanne. Let's start. Kindly introduce Alex.
Okay.
Where's yours?
So welcome, everyone, and welcome, Alex. We're here, as Adrien said, with Alex Genov, who has more than 25 years experience across a variety of industries that range from insurance to personal finance to B2B to retail. He holds a doctorate in experimental social psychology and combines his skills with his passion for research, design, and innovation. And he applies that to solving important customer and business problems. Alex currently leads customer research for the Zappos Family of Companies, which he'll tell us a little more about. I know that he has presented at events on 6 continents. I think it's just at we're waiting. And so it really, we are very honored to have you here with us today. Thank you so much, Alex, for being here.
Thank you, Suzanne, and thank you, Adrien, too, for having me. It's a pleasure.
So can you kind of kick us off and give us, that was just a very quick intro, but tell us maybe a little bit more about your current role and your current company and what you do.
Sure. Yeah, before I do that, let me introduce myself a little bit more on a personal level. You guys mentioned we live in Vegas, in the entertainment capital of the world. I'm married. We have 2.4 beautiful children. Little Nicholas is 0.4, and he gets teased at school, right? I tell him you're going to grow up to be a 1.0 human being soon. When I give this talk, usually the audience chuckles a little bit like you do. But my point is, it's a very serious point. And the point is that we all love technology. We all love analytics now and AI and big data and data science. And sometimes we forget that our customers are real people, and you cannot average real people, and you cannot average human experience. And my background, like you said, in social psychology has allowed me to bring that perspective to the business world. So currently at Zappos, I lead customer research and marketing insights. And I see my role as helping the organization understand the customers on a deeper psychological level beyond the numbers, in addition to the numbers. So provide this balance between looking at what's happening, which is reflected in the transactional data, in the financial data, in the numbers, if you will, with what customers are feeling and what they need and what they desire and what they're afraid of and so on. So more of the human aspect of business.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we have a very robust analytics and data science team. We have huge data, of course. Zappos is part of Amazon.
That's what, I was going to ask if you could give us a little more background on Zappos for the international audience.
Of course. So that's my role at Zappos, is to help shine the light on customer as a human being, and combine that and balance that with the numbers. So a little bit about Zappos. So I joined Zappos almost 10 years ago, and already it had existed for 15 years. So Zappos has a fascinating story. It's a really unique company. This guy Nick Schwimmern founded it in 1999. So the internet was just starting. And at that point, he was looking for an investor to back his venture. And the idea was that Nick had this idea of, he was going all across from store to store in San Francisco looking for a specific shoe. He couldn't find it, and he was aware of the rise of the internet. And he had this idea: why can't we start selling shoes on the internet so I can shop from the convenience of my home instead of having to go from store to store to find out that they don't have the shoe. And at that point, Tony Hsieh, who had started the internet business before that, he was an undergraduate at Harvard University, and he created his first company called Link Exchange, which was the dawn of marketing on the internet, where you could exchange these links they didn't have banners even back then, just these links to different companies on the websites. And he sold it to Microsoft for $250 million and started his investment firm called Venture Frogs. Mm-hmm. And so Nick Schwimmern went to Tony with this idea, and Tony wasn't convinced. He was not sure that people would shop on the internet for shoes. And the way Nick Schwimmern convinced him was, he said, look, this is just like catalog shopping on the phone, which is a $90 billion business. And that convinced Tony. He said, oh, that's great. You just, instead of the phone, you use the computer. So that's how they started. In these early days, it was very unusual to shop, especially for shoes and clothes, on the internet. And they started with just shoes. So they had to be very creative in how they did that. For example, they would go to a physical store and ask the storekeeper, can we take a picture of this shoe? And some people would say yes, some people would chase him out the door. But then they would take a picture of the shoe, put it on the website, and have a buy button underneath. And as soon as somebody clicked buy, they would run to the store, buy it, and ship it. And then I'll tell one more story, which is really defining of Zappos in the early days, which set Zappos apart from any other company. And that's why Zappos is known all over the world now. It's not because of the shoes we sell, it's because of the culture and because of the focus on customer service. And how this started was this anecdote. This woman bought shoes. She, trusted Zappos and tried Zappos early on and ordered this pair of shoes for a special event, for a wedding or something like this. And the shoes didn't arrive in time, and she was very disappointed. She wrote to the company. And think back then, it's a scrappy startup. One customer is complaining. They could have easily said, forget it. It's only one customer, right? We're just a very scrappy startup. Instead, they took it very seriously. They overnighted her a pair of shoes, and they apologized profusely and sent her a coupon. And I mean, they went above and beyond. And then almost 25 years ago, she writes back. And the subject line of this email is actually in the subject line, she says, wow. That's the subject line. 25 years ago, right? Now everybody's about wowing customers, all that. We're talking about 25 years ago. So at that point, they had this epiphany that that's how they're going to win, is through customer service and through this intense focus on customer service, on culture. So that's Tony Hsieh used to say Zappos is a customer service company that happens to sell shoes. Now, our current CEO, now we have to evolve with the times. At some point down the line, Amazon acquired Zappos. So now we've been an Amazon subsidiary for a dozen years, I think. Very good fit because Amazon is a customer-obsessed company. They're all about the customer, of course. And Zappos is a bit more specialized because we focus on soft goods, which is shoes, clothes, handbags, accessories. These much more personal items. But Zappos, now our current CEO, who's been with Zappos, who's a great Zapponian, he's been with Zappos for more than 15 years. Scott Schaefer, he's evolves this saying to say Zappos is a customer experience company that happens to sell shoes. So it makes it a bit broader beyond just customer service on the phone.
So let me ask you a question. For those of you out there who are watching and listening right now, the last couple of webinars that we've hosted have focused largely on the technology, and we are going to kind of circle around to that. But I think what's really interesting about everything you've just said, Alex, and your work in particular, is how you really do put people, meaning your customers, at the center of everything that you do. Everyone is obsessed, as you said, with AI, with big data, and in terms of what I've read that you have written or been involved in, it's people are not numbers. You cannot average them. And so can you tell, and one of the big things that I've seen is that that you say is your customer segmentation has to be meaningful. And I think anytime you're using new technologies or anything you do, yes, I agree. Customer segmentation has to be meaningful. But can you tell us a little bit more about that? Or if you have any ways that you specifically applied it and adapted your company's offer to a more meaningful segmentation?
Absolutely, Suzanne. Yeah. And at the end, I was alluding to, making this a little bit more entertaining. So, and me living in Vegas, I feel like I have to mini stand up here. So here's I'll do two bits that illustrate the point, and I'll go into the specifics. But I'll ask you and the audience if you've heard the story of the statistician who had his head in a hot oven and feet in a block of ice, but on the average they felt just fine. So try it at home, and I encourage the audience to first thing go at home and try it, see what the average experience looks like.
Right.
So that's one, right? And then another one is I usually have a slide with this, but speaking of segmentation, you can segment people in many, many different ways. But there's usually three in marketing research. There's three general ways. One is to segment on demographics. So you can define and divide people into, gender, age. These are the simple, the straightforward ways, income, you name it. So then another type of segmentation is behavioral, is what they do. So segment people who do X and then Y and Z. But then there's also another way, which is to segment people according to more stable, long-lasting, and deeper psychological characteristics that don't change quite over time. So I'll go into this in a little bit, but here's an illustration of using what happens when you use just demographics. So it works so well, it's going to work even without a slide. So imagine with me someone who fits the following criteria. Is male, born in 1948, married twice, quite famous, lives in a castle, and is wealthy, lives in a castle, born in 1948, married twice. So can you think of a person?
Someone who's around.
Alain Delon. Sorry, I don't have.
Doesn't live in a castle. I was going to go Prince Charles.
King Charles. So
King Charles.
King Charles. Now he's king, right? So the picture of King Charles shows up on the slide, but then and Ozzy Osbourne shows up right next to him, because Ozzy Osbourne and King Charles. And imagine. I mean, you can even imagine the visuals, right? Ozzy in his like crazy makeup and so both of them fit to the T, the exact same demographic description. Okay. So, and then when you see that, you realize that it's absolutely silly to think. And then let's say this was a friend of mine who's in the beauty business came up, I think, with this example, and you can talk about they both use makeup, right? But they use it for a different purpose and different types. So makes the point that doing demographic segmentation is the silliest and least actionable. It's the cheapest and easiest, but it's really the least actionable. With behavioral segmentation, it's a bit more meaningful. But the problem there is you don't know why people behave the way they do. And so I'll give you one example from our research at Zappos. For example, we noticed a while ago that looking at the data, at the numbers, we noticed that a lot of women buy only product for clothing and shoes and so on for their children, but not for themselves. So that's clearly a well-defined behavior. And because there are customers who have their email, the initial urge was just to send them an email, say, why don't you buy something for yourself? But instead, we did a deeper research, and we went to people's homes and we talked to them. We observed the context of their lives. So we talked to a lot of moms to discover something that's a real phenomenon called mommy guilt, meaning before I had children, I loved shopping. I shopped a lot for myself. But then after having children, everything goes to the child or the children, and I feel guilty when I buy for myself. And when I share this example in my talks, a lot of women in the audience start nodding and say, yes, this is how I feel. So this you cannot see in the spreadsheets and in the data, right? And that's my point about technology is great. AI is fantastic. I mean, without this technology and without AI and without big data, I mean, our lives would be very different, right? We couldn't do a lot of things.
Sure.
Take Google Maps, right? I mean, that's a fantastic, almost magical technology that predicts to the minute, regardless of the time of day, it predicts when you're going to arrive. Like how they do it, it's like magic. But it's not personal, right? It has nothing to do with
sure.
It's pure technology. And then the point is important when you talk about personalization and about personal characteristics and experiences, which we all talk about experiences, but these are feelings. It's about the person. And a lot of what determines the feelings is not present in that data. And that's
absolutely
the gap.
I think one of the things that I loved in some of your work is how you talk about these, and I think that's this opposition or this tension between this obsession with big data and analytics, and that's kind of in opposition or creates tension with this desire to build personal customer-centric experiences.
Exactly.
So if you're looking, I know that you've worked in startups. I know you've worked in Fortune 500 companies. So you've worked across a range of sizes. But if you're looking at a small to medium business, how can you? What would be your advice to them in terms of how to apply some of these consumer, I guess what I would call an emotional segmentation or a values-based emotional segmentation?
Sure.
How do they get that information? How can they apply it? Are there ways that they can use some of these new augmented reality, virtual reality technologies to then create those experiences?
Sure, absolutely, Suzanne. So again, the technology is, and I'm a huge fan of technology. The point is to first understand the needs and the customers, and then choose the right technology. That's the correct sequence versus saying we're going to use AI, we're going to use VR, but then how we use it is, then you start trying to find out the application for the technology.
Mm-hmm.
So your fantastic question about what methods to use to get to that level of customer understanding. Of course, big companies have bigger budgets and they can afford fancy
Sure.
consultants and really fancy market research that is based on really robust, powerful analytics. You need specialists for that. A lot of market research companies employ dozens of PhDs. They cost a fortune to do those things. But the point is that it doesn't have to be that way in a way. So I think the biggest barrier to getting that insight and that information is, I would say, a type of mindset, which is leadership or executive mindset, which is all we need to know is in the spreadsheets. That's hard data, that's real data. Everything else is fluff, right? When you ask people, they don't know what to say, they lie, all that. So that's a mindset, that's a worldview that I believe it corresponds to to me. I go back in history, I think of the age of the mechanism, the mechanistic age, when we invented the mechanism and the cogs in the machines. And we're so fascinated with that. And even they depicted the brain as a system of cogs that turn, right? I mean, at that point, I think to some extent we're back in that spot, but now the mechanism is ones and zeros. It's software, but it's the exact same mindset.
So it's sort of what's hard, or it's even though some of this data is not tangible, it feels more tangible than, I guess, an emotional profile, which feels, as you said, kind of fluffy, kind of nebulous, I guess.
Right. I mean, not to the untrained person in a way. Numbers are numbers. I mean, this is, so I think the perfect application of this is, I mentioned Google, for example, in their maps technology. When you think of engineering and when people build bridges, I mean, it's all based on numbers, and that's what we need. Physics, all of that, to some extent, medicine, it's all numbers, and that's all we need. But when you start involving a human being with their, right, so a consumer that is going to decide where to buy something and so on, now you involve the human, and we are not like the bricks that you lay and then you line up, and right, you calculate things and then you line up the bricks and it all works out. The same is the case with economics. Traditional economics is based on math and on rationality and these assumptions that we act as rational actors all the time. But then more recently, the rise of behavioral economics recognizes that we are motivated by emotions a lot of the times. And emotions, of course, that's all psychology is an established
Of
science.
course.
So it has its scientific methods, and we know about, we understand humans based on that. We can understand emotions, we can measure emotions. This is all measurable. We can turn insights into numbers, of course, right? We can quantify how many people feel that way and that way. This is all doable. My point was that for people who don't take that view, they would dismiss something and say, it's not scalable, so I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to waste my time and my money on that. Or somebody that says only the algorithms and the numbers are really what can help my business. So if you are open-minded and are open to
so it's working on convincing and being open-minded to this new stuff. Let me, I don't want to cut you off, but I do want to ask, I want to come back to something that's maybe a little more concrete in terms of, let's take this mommy guilt that you mentioned a little while ago. So women who are shopping and buying products for their children, but have stopped essentially buying for themselves. So if you are, even if you are kind of, as you said earlier, a scrappy startup or something like that, which I love, you can get customer data. You can ask for customer feedback. And so you can start to see, at least, even if you're not hiring consulting firms and all this stuff, but you can start to possibly see within your own customer feedback that there's maybe something. And okay, so let's say that I am selling rings, whatever, to women, and I identify this mommy guilt segment, or I recognize this as a block to purchase. What would be your advice in that specific? So now I know that this is a block. I know that this is an emotional block or segment. How do I address it then?
Right. Fantastic question. I think that's where the application of this is really what's going to make the difference.
Let me switch from rings. Hang on a minute. Let me switch from rings and go to jeans.
Jeans. Yeah. I mean,
jeans, which is a much harder, I think for women, a much harder sell, actually.
But I think it's perfectly rings, anything, even anything, right? Because it's the whole idea. It's all encompassing. It's buying something for yourself. That's what makes you, right? Because you're kind of so focused on the child and caring for them than buying for you. So it's all encompassing. So it's fine. So the tone deaf approach would be to ignore that and to send this email and say, buy something for yourself. In that case, the woman would say, oh geez, like they don't get me. This is just, they're trying to just sell me stuff, right? A very heavy-handed sales approach. But if you now, with this understanding, you send an email saying, look, we see you, we understand you, you're a busy mom, we know how you feel, then the person will say, oh, they get me, right? Then they then you create this goodwill in a way, like you get me and you're on my side. You're not just looking for your own self-interest, for your bottom line. And then what you can say is, for example, shop around. We know that you're looking, right? Put stuff in your favorites. And maybe based on segmentation, understanding who your best customers are, your vocal advocates, the ones that are profitable for you, your great customers. Then on your birthday, which you have shared with your own consent, right? We send you an item from that list, right? And then imagine if you didn't expect that and you get this pair of shoes on your birthday, right? And imagine the effect that it will have, and then you're gonna go and start telling others about this. And that's,
and I guess I could see, once you identify, I see your point in terms of wanting to apply some of the augmented reality and virtual reality technologies that are available to us, but to start from that mindset of, okay, I have this technology that's available, but before I just try to layer it on, let me see what my customers want. So I could imagine, with the guilty mom thing, you come back and say, we know you're busy. We get it. Hey, you probably don't have time to go to the stores anymore. We have a new virtual try on
Perfect.
kind of thing.
Yes, that's a perfect segue. So this is Leah. Let's talk about virtual reality and that, which is a pretty amazing technology. Again, you have to start from this understanding. So Suzanne, you hit the nail on the head. Another, it may not be applicable in the mommy guilt, phenomenon. It's not, but it's applicable in what you just mentioned. It's another reality, which is going to stores with children is a nightmare, basically. And that's what parents know, that going, they're screaming, they're running around. And that's another, we've also confirmed it with our research. It's really, really hard and very painful. So shopping from home is much more convenient. Virtual try-on is really would be a great solution. One of the biggest problems for any retailer of shoes and clothing and so on is size and fit. This is it's well known. Size and fit. It's a gnarly problem because different shoes and clothing brands, there's no standard. So you have numbers, US numbers, UK numbers, EU numbers. I mean, it's all over.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then it's also, when you speak of children, another phenomenon is their feet grow so fast and in those unpredictable ways sometimes, or mostly predictable, but you have growth spurs and so on, which is brings another, I can share another anecdote with that, illustrating how personal this is. So we were in Seattle doing this kind of home research. We're speaking to a mom, and she basically shared a story with us, which is she had taken her kids to the park to play, and then another mother noticed that one of her kids is limping, and she said, "Your kid's shoes are too tight. Your kid's shoes are too tight." This woman was horrified. I mean, imagine, it's almost like you're not being a good mother. You know what I mean?
Oh.
And and sometimes, I mean, I've experienced that. We have two boys, and sometimes their shoes are too tight, and then it's like my feet hurt, and then you feel like, I should have checked, I guess. But my point is, it's very personal, right? This thing of figuring out when to, and if you could, whatever technology cracks that would be the holy grail. It's very hard. You guys know it's very hard. It's different. So your technology would be a bit more applicable to, let's say, furniture shopping, right? Which is another big retail, which is like, how does it fit in which is another customer need? How does it fit in my room? And here's my room. So you visualize it perfect, right? This is with shoes and clothes. Again, you have, you put in the person in the picture, and it makes it much more complicated, right? Because different body shapes, and then there's this phenomenon. Not only does it fit, but how does it feel? So it may fit, but it's uncomfortable, or it makes me look weird, or something like this, right? Especially with clothing. So that is the hardest problem to solve there, I believe.
Right. But I like this. I like, just to sort of round out, I think, because we're about at our time limit. I like this idea of, we have all these tools. That's great. Make sure you know what they are, but apply them to the right person at the right time and stuff. I think that's a way that I think a lot of people are not necessarily, looking at a way that people are looking. You look at it in a different way. Sorry.
Sure.
I want to make sure that for everybody who's watching and listening, that if you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to check out Alex's book, which I believe is available on Amazon, called "Forget the Customer, See the Person."
Thank you, Suzanne.
All right. Yep. I'm going to make sure people check it out. And Leah, I'll pass it to you.
Thank you very much, Alex, for joining this webinar. It was very interesting. Like Suzanne said, we've had 2 sessions with filled with techno and expertise, and this time was very much focused on the consumer, which is very interesting. So thank you very much, Alex, for this feedback from you. I hope you have a good day in Las Vegas.
Thank you for having me.
And you're going to be in Paris soon, so hope you enjoy your time here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll be at the World Retail Congress there, yeah, it's looking forward to it.
Fantastic.
Enjoy
Maybe
the
we'll
tour.
run into you. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining this webinar. The next one will be about shopper research in mid-May. It will be advertised on our LinkedIn page. Alex, once again, thank you. Suzanne, thank you very much. Thank you, all of you. And you have a good evening for the ones in Dubai and good day for the ones in Las Vegas. Bye-bye, everybody.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.